Hey everyone, this is the DeFi panel. I'll let you guys introduce yourself, so please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nour, founder of Inverse Finance and Dola stablecoin. So yeah.
Hi, I'm co-founder and CTO of Gearbox Protocol. We reimagine how lending could be.
Hi, I'm Clément, Solidity developer at VFAT and also Whetstone Research.
I'm Mariia, hi again, and I'm leading people operations and recruitment at CowDAO. CowDAO is a decentralized autonomous organization of developers, market makers, and community members. Thank you.
And before we get into the panel and get those spicy questions, just give me a one-word answer, not more than that. Do you think it's better now to build in DeFi than last 2 years? So was it better to build in DeFi 2 years ago, or is it better to build in DeFi now?
Someone wants to start?
No.
Well, I mean, I can say, you want one word?
Yeah, so let's say is it better to build now?
Oh, it's horrible now. Yeah. That's my answer. I mean, we've been building an Inverse for 5 years, and it just gets, I guess, more competitive, but also people are getting further away from cypherpunk values and getting more and more centralized. I think the market is more money chasing than tech chasing. I think people chose between people used to say, do you want to be rich, do you want to be right? I think they chose rich.
Yeah, so good question. Of course, it was much easier to start a few years ago, but in terms of technology, we made a big shift in terms how to build projects. Thanks for security auditors, unfortunately hackers, we learned a lot. So what I can see now, people could build more robust things taking the previous experience. So it's a little bit easier from the technical standpoint, but it's much more harder in terms of marketing and attracting capital.
Yeah, my opinion is a bit similar actually. I would say it's harder now because in the past there was less competition, but the tech stack was a bit harder, and now we have also more regulatory constraints. But if you're successful, you can be way more successful now than before. But yeah.
So I would say that now it's easier because we have better infra, we have more clarity, and everything is again just smoother and faster. However, I still miss lots of security, lots of UX, and but however, if you talk about the 2 years ago, also it was more structured. It was more, I would say, we took it more serious. We were following more on the principles of the decentralization. We were really caring about the products we build, the protocols we build, and how do we build them.
Yeah, and actually that's a good segue to my next question. Do you think the trust assumptions on DeFi apps have been increasing or decreasing? Previously, what I personally felt there were apps which were more reliant and built for a purpose that tomorrow if it's a nuclear war or something, the apps still perform. Is it the same case now, or do you think where are we heading towards in that fashion?
I can pick this up if you don't mind. I would say it's decreasing. Mm-hmm. We have more trust into DeFi. We have more protocols which are solving the real use cases, and we are one step closer to the mass adoption, which I would love to see in a few years. However, as I mentioned, I would love to see more. I would love to see more security. I would love to see more trusted products and protocols, better composability, where protocols can just build on top of each other, and trusting that that block is safe without the malicious actions and so on. So answering your question, yes, it's decreasing, but we wish all for more.
Yeah. So basically, the trust is decreasing, but there is inherent borrowed trust from different protocols which are safer, and you're using it from there.
I would say No, trust into the, sorry, maybe I need to explain myself better. Trust in DeFi is increasing, but the risk is decreasing.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very quickly, I would say, if your question is, are protocols making more trust assumptions, as in they're trusting, they're making more assumptions about things being working. For example, in our sub-industry of stablecoins, I mean, it always keeps getting worse, especially with the RWA trend. Like for example, when DAI V1 was just ETH, collateral. I remember when it upgraded to multi-collateral. And that was a mess. Everybody was so angry. Everybody was complaining like you could not put more other collaterals. We cannot trust other collaterals. This is the end of DAI. And now DAI is adding censorship. I mean, USDS, for example, including censorship, or just adding RWAs, which are custodians, etc. Or not just DAI, to be honest. I'm not picking on DAI, but like every other stablecoin project now using RWA, and everybody is okay with it. I guess the trust assumptions have shifted dramatically. Honestly. It's no one at this point. No one really cares about what the trust assumptions are, and everybody's maximizing them, in stable coins at least.
And in terms of lending market, and maybe it's regards into the whole industry, the initial values were totally removed because, like, maybe 3-4 years ago, it was significant to make things unstoppable, to make things like banking people know nothing. So we really try to make machines which works without any possibility to be stopped. And really people evaluate crypto as an alternative financial system. And now there are a lot of conversation how we can really develop all these barriers and things like legislation on the smart contract side. So people do not evaluate that the system works independently. They really just focus maybe on yield or even accept pretty risky solutions. So some of our competitors, they just hard-code one-to-one from one stable coin to USD, which was a pretty risky solution because the price is never guaranteed. And at the same time, we in Gearbox even have a pricing for USDC. So we do not write even USDC, but it's one of the biggest tokens on the market. And people say, okay, it's totally fine, why not? And these steps really remove the base of perception. And at my point, if we really do not evaluate the value of decentralization, the value of unstoppable finance, etc., it's really moves the price and value of the whole DeFi further and further to the lowest things, because people initially came to crypto as alternative system, and if we try to build the things closer to existing financial system, we really start to compete, and of course this competition could not be really won because we have a very major, huge banking system. We can't compete in any kind of money or size or even technology or person involved. So yeah, unfortunately this happens.
Yeah, I guess also trust is increasing, but in very specific actors. You can see like people will trust like OG protocols or protocols that have been there for a long time, even as you said, like with DICE, things like that. People will trust it even if they are changing things. But when you're like launching new protocols, it's harder now, I guess, to get liquidity, to get traction, because people in the past, they were willing to like put money in some unaudited projects that got launched just because they were willing to try DeFi, try new stuff, like with the Alchemix project like that. They were really willing to try new things and experience DeFi and new financial, like a new financial system, I guess.
So yeah, like, and I feel like with that, like with the trust assumptions, we do have actually still a lot of hacks going on, right? Like I feel like, okay, at the start there were a lot of hacks. Now still, like, the only people that get benefit from that is like probably North Koreans, right? They've probably made the most amount of money in crypto at this point. But we still see a lot of hacks, and some of them are like smart contract, but a lot of them are also more on the Web 2 side, right? And still the space, I don't really find a lot of monitoring, data and tooling. A lot of recent hacks could have been avoided with a very simple monitoring scripts, right? So how do we try to actually improve it and, like force protocol people and devs to focus more on it, right? Because now it's been like, oh, if you most likely get hacked, I think like previously the like protocols did take more responsibility, versus now if they got hacked, oh, like, probably just take our tokens or whatever, So what should we do? Like, who should be the sayer on it? Maybe like Ethereum or like, L2s, because they directly get impacted with any hack, right? So what are your thoughts to improve the situation?
I would say at Inverse, for example, over the time, we have an analytics working group. Over the time, it's really grown to like almost like an on-chain intelligence agency. Like we monitor every single user above a certain threshold. We monitor the assets and the markets outside. We actually, like you basically have watch lists of users and assets and markets. And all of that to make sure there's no risk that could spread to us. If there's any unusual behavior, we get instant alerts, and we also have charts of past data, et cetera. We've done some work on open sourcing that. I think in the Web 2 industry, a lot of times when there are problems like this that are shared by people like projects that are competitors, the solution is usually open source. We've done some work on that. We've open sourced. We have a pretty sophisticated platform called Inverse Watch, which is an analytics platform. We've open sourced it. But I think we and other projects could do better on like creating some kind of shared monitoring tools that we could use, especially lending and stablecoin protocols, because they have the same problems, they have the same stuff that they're monitoring. They're monitoring their users, their markets, etc. So I think some open source work could work there. That doesn't have to be like, because all I see is service providers and providing as a service, but I think we do a lot of redundant monitoring work, which could just be collaborated on as open source. And it doesn't have to be commercial. I think open source is a solution to that. But because I know what we're doing at Inverse is probably being done at Gearbox. And it's probably being done in Aave and Morpho, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just better to learn from each other and create a kind of like a shared infrastructure. That's just my idea, to be honest. More open source.
I don't know, maybe in terms of protocol, it's a pretty hard to explain because in some kind of ways, protocols consider from different people like something like pretty complex inside them, and people more think about products, not protocols. But on the protocol side, we built like a very, very strong infrastructure regarding security things. So we have many monitorings, and we already open sourced the whole supply chain. I believe if we talk about protocols, we should think a little bit wider, because the last hack, for example, of Bybit, it was not related to a protocol hack. It was related to the frontier when people sign incorrect transaction. And in protocol should really cover the whole supply chain. For example, we built a lot of interesting stuff related to protecting front end. So before going to production, we launch some tests and we check that it works as defined. So we get some user inputs and we have some predicted transactions, etc., etc. But it's not couldn't be limited on the protocol. My all-time pitch was related, for example, DNS. Building DNS check-in bot, we also outsource it. You can find it in Gearbox protocol, GitHub. It's a very simple solution, but you should really, as a product owner, check it first, because there are multiple layers where a potential attacker could really make any bad things for you. So you should monitor your DNS name, your front end. Then we check and monitor liquidity using special optimistic liquidations at the system. We check that everything works fine, and we have enough liquidity to really liquidate if the problem happens on the market, and so on and so on. So multiple things to evaluate, and I think it should be done maybe openly. We pitch a lot of this stuff, but other protocols should also help and really build like a community to at least make a value of these security measures in eyes of potential user. Because sometimes when people could see, wow, it's 216% APY, it doesn't matter, they have a security audit, how to deposit, and it is here. So we should really talk a lot, and maybe these discussions could help users to distinguish what should be done, what's done by different protocol, and how security is significant, because 100% loss is not really people expected.
Yeah, I think like over the years we are taking security for granted, and like it's the same thing like in the daily life. You won't believe something will happen to you until it will happen to you. You won't believe you will be hacked until you get hacked. And I think, as you said, like it's pretty clear that now maybe protocols are getting better at like testing and auditing the smart contracts. Maybe not all of them, but I feel like we are in a good way about this. But like many aspects, like we've seen that, as you said, like the hack with the safe wallet, or many other hacks that happen, even with like centralized exchange, they are not happening like on like a protocol or smart contract issue. They are either happening with like phishing attacks, like social engineering. So people are not like following security practices, like the good practices, or also like you're going to build a front end and you will trust like some random modules. Why? I don't know, but I mean, this is something pretty common, and you will be building a front end and you will be like using the latest version of this JavaScript library built by someone you don't even know, and you will never check what's inside. Maybe there is like a huge possibility of getting rugged at some point. Like, I feel like audits are good for the contract, but no one is going to audit a front end. No one is even going to do like proper testing of the front end or checking the origin of the packages. So I mean, now we are in I feel also in a small how can I say, like yeah, as you said, compared to TradFi, we are very small, and I think it's okay now because like all the security practices are not like here. But if DeFi wants to grow even bigger, like everything should be checked, otherwise people will get wrecked all the time.
So many things has been said already. What I can add, that I believe personally that security is one of the biggest issues. And I believe there is no one or two solutions. There are many, many, many things which should be improved, and we should take it as a complex thing. And me personally, I would love to see chains taking more security measures. I would like to apps, protocols to take care more of the observability, and even maybe we have some open source monitoring stack like Prometheus who can, control everything, and to ensure that security is taken seriously. We do improvements, and this is also one of the huge steps would be for the DeFi to reach the mass adoption, because the reason why we are growing, but slowly growing, not rapidly, is because people need to trust more. People need to trust that if they put the funds, if they do, I don't know, swaps or anything on the DeFis, they are secured, and there is less and less we would see situations like with Bybit or even smaller attacks. So we have security, and users who are not even native DeFi users can trust us and can step in and say, hey, yes, that's exactly what I was waiting for so many years, and I actually like DeFi more than traditional finance, And yeah, I can start using that on a daily basis, and I don't need to think about what's going to happen. My funds are secured. The UX is good. UI is easy to understand, and so on.
I think we're making efforts with like Seal 9.1 is like a good initiative, like that helps people. Maybe we just need to give them the pausing role, or even like Peg Shield a pausing role, because half of the time they monitor everybody's contract. So yeah. Moving on, what are the extent we are making protocols reliant on off-chain systems such as intents, right? Let's say in the case of CowSwap and 1inch, and also in lending space as well, there have been some RWA assets which can only be liquidated by a very off-chain actor, right? In those cases and most of the lending protocols that we do have today have shared risk, right, with other assets. So that puts, like, with adding just one RWA, which can give you like $100 million, makes your lending and borrowing at $1 billion risk, versus also in swaps, like the trade liveliness risk, right? And the data shows, at least from what I saw from the 1inch data, most of the swaps goes to not naming the solvers, but one of the top two market makers in most cases, right? And at least for like the major players, right? So how do you think the situation would look for on-chain LPing or activities? And is this model good, or are we like digressing back where we shouldn't? Maybe if you want to start from that side.
Yeah, I would love to start. Thank you so much. I've already briefly discussed that with you before coming here. So it's not black and white. There are pros and cons. And let me talk about the pros. I believe personally that intents-based mechanism like batch auction is great. The reason why, because it's indeed can provide for the users the best possible price. The solvers who are solving those intents in the batch auction, they can really do their best and get rewarded for proceeding with best possible price and surplus. On the other hand, it's true that there are market makers who are big, and they are solvers as well, and most of the times they are winning the, let's say, the solver competition and batching. I don't see it as a big problem. I think has place to be. What I want to say is that the smaller solvers, or those solvers who are having less liquidity than market makers, let's put it this way, they also have fair competition and condition to be able to provide their solution and to be able also to get rewarded and again, like, be huge part of the competition, basically, in the batch auction. So I'm not sure if you heard my previous talk. In case of the CowSwap, in the end of the May, we actually introducing more fair auction, where not only one solver can win, but there actually can multiple solvers win at the same time. So we believe that this is also a game changer, and that's the way how it should move forward, and it will include smaller solvers to be beneficial out of the solver competition, and the most important, that the users will benefit out of it, and see, again, like multiple solutions. I'm talking right now here peer-to-peer, ring trades, not only single trades when it's connected with the market makers. I can talk a lot, but I think I will stop here. Again, like, it's not black and white. I'm a huge believer. I think that have the intent, despite that it's taken slightly longer than just executing the trade on chain in one transaction, it has lots of benefits. It still needs to be improved, but that's exactly the reason why we're here, and that's exactly what we are working on.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you guys have any thoughts?
I think so. The first part, regards into market, we should distinguish major coins and long tail, because solvers could be only beneficial for major coins Nobody wants to be a solver of a shitcoin, to be honest. And we really go deeper to this market when we talk about liquidations. The expectation of yield of people who solve, it's a very, very high. So it's a big problem when you launch, for example, the new chain, ask someone to put money on it just to use there. So it's like such kind of barriers. And of course, it's create a very sustainable business for solvers. So they really get and squeeze a lot of money from new chains. AMM could solve a lot of problem regarding to starting your own first token because you can provide liquidity by yourself, community could help itself. So I believe AMM will exist forever, so no one could really cover all this stuff. But another very risky point, and nobody cares about that. Imagine that these solvers, it sounds pretty, we have solvers over the world. It's really 100 computers. Not more. Even it's billions, it's 100 computers. Nobody cares about sustainability. Yesterday we got a blackout in European Union. If we will have like two major solvers who own billions there, and it was a price drop, everything could be got fucked. Because in AMM, you can really compute how much money you have. You can at least make any expectations in terms of price drop. When liquidation started, you can exchange money and buy something back. In terms of off-chain liquidity, nobody cares. So, and it could be totally different. Of course, blackout is a very strong case, but in many stuff I was experienced, people just was panic about like a market turmoil, and they say, hey guys, let's keep a pause. And in this case, it's create a worse situation with liquidity because the market players expect that, hey, people would be willing to buy Ethereum, for example, like at the price of 1,900, but people say, oh, it's a very, very huge turmoil. We are really not satisfied with news. Maybe war happens or anything else. So we stop any operation. And in this case, a lot of capital could be disconnected as this such event. So I really appreciate that you have multiple small solvers, because if you have a very big party, we rely on a huge pack of capital which could be disconnected by one decision. If we have a decentralized solvers who really have small part of capital, it could be more reliable. So I believe it's like things which could really reduce the stuff. More decentralization makes more sustainable stuff. But of course, capital want to do the opposite stuff, because capital is all time about centralization. More capital, more yield, and of course, banks also compete by their sides, no services. So it's a tricky point even now.
We've previously seen with even with stock apps, like there had been like liquidity crunch when like big market makers, did not provide any quotes. However, those apps which were actually smaller than the bigger ones, they had like a lot of small market makers which actually did during those times as well. So yeah, it's like it's a very interesting point. I think we're way above the time, so I'm just going to skip to the last question. So imagine if like you were head of DeFi at Ethereum. I'm not sure if that's an official post. So what is one change you would do? Like, is it something that you would do with like EIPs to push certain EIPs, or probably get a table at the discussion where they actually discuss EIPs? Or what would be your grand change? And you have to just do it in one day, so it has to be like a very atomic change. What it would be if there is something?
I think what I would do is what they're doing right now, actually. And they've been, the Ethereum Foundation just yesterday, I think last week or so, has been making a huge shift to L1 scalability. I'm honestly sick and tired, personally, of like multiple L2 deployments, and I wish we could just, we on Inverse, our lending protocols are on L1, on Ethereum, Zola is mainly on L1, but we're basically, we have some activity in L2s, but it's just so much work to bridge and create the infrastructure to support those L2s and fragment the liquidity. I think we need L1 scalability, to be honest. I think what they're doing now is that they're basically moving on from the EVM towards RISC-V, which is an alternative that is more scalable, significantly more scalable. There's just the architecture itself allows the L1 to scale, and I think that is the right thing for DeFi. DeFi does not work well with liquidity fragmentation. It works well with composability. We want to be always composable with every lending protocol, with every stablecoin, with every AMM. We inverse and we integrate with Gearbox. We integrate with Aave. We integrate with Pendle. And Gearbox. Does the same. We integrate with all the stablecoins, with Frax, and all of us. We're really all tightly knit. Even if we're competitors, sometimes. But if we have we have hundreds of L2s and bridging, also like third-party bridges and first-party bridges. But the point is, it's such a mess, to be honest. And people who are, in the Solana community, who are, they have a point. Like it's for us as builders, it is annoying. I mean, probably even more than the users, because it just increases our work by 10x for no clear reason. I don't think L2s are going to go away, but the answer to your question is I would focus on L1 scalability, which is what everybody's been saying, and which is what I think Vitalik and the rest of the EF are doing anyway. I don't think, on the other hand, the EF or the Ethereum Foundation should be interventionist, and try and I think, just create some specific changes that would help DeFi as an application. It should stay credibly neutral, as it is, and as they've always been advocating for. Just give us scalability, please. And so.
I believe maybe the most significant part, because it's like I totally against any market intervention, to be honest. So we have two things which could be done on this level. The first one is standardization, and some stuff could be dramatically improved if we can really build something more standardized. Luckily, we have, for example, ERC 4626 is a good example, which really solves a lot of stuff and make the life easier. However, I believe the biggest part should be focused in terms of values, because the same things happens with capital there. So we have a really a market leaders. For example, we have $30+ billion. And we have a big stakers on Ethereum who also control a huge amount of ETH, etc., etc. And the problem here, if we can say, hey guys, we are for decentralization, come to Ethereum, and this is top protocols, this is top capital holders. It's not about decentralization. Decentralization should be on each step of the stuff. So give attention, not incentive, but give attention for different protocols, for different stakers. It's Vitalik also made supporting solo stakers, etc. Because if we have a lot of different solutions and we have less difference between the market leader and others, it's create better way at any terms. What I said, if you have a huge market maker who control 90% of swaps, Ethereum totally depends on it. If we have only one DEX which really has the major values, it's also not the best solution. If you have only one lending protocol, so of course everybody wants to be a market leader, we also depends on this, and in case of hack, you should really ask the community, hey, can we make a step back? If you have different competition, but not a big levels, it's create more sustainable way. So.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I'm in favor of decentralization on many aspects, but I guess something interesting would be more leadership in the development of Ethereum. And I guess this is why also Solana was able to maybe grow fast, is because I feel like it's maybe less centralized on the development side. I don't think we necessarily need to be just centralized or someone deciding, but maybe someone leading the development and saying, okay, this EIP, we can spend this time trying to see if it works or not, and maybe someone also trying to organize the development. of the IPO. We can see that with EOF, how it went, and I feel like there are many like lessons to learn here. But personally, I would say scaling L1 is good because too many L2s is just too many L2s. There's like fragmentation. Users just don't know what to do. If the UX was just like completely abstracted, that would be a huge win for the user experience, but it's not the case. So right now it sucks. For developers, it sucks also. It's very bad. Maybe just scale L1, increase the gas limit, increase the contract limit, make the ERC20 native, so no more contract, just add it to the EVM, adopt new opcodes like 7702, so EOS can do like multi-calls, things like that. There are so many good EIPs that have been there for like maybe 5 years, and no one is trying to push them anymore because the author just like kind of abandoned. And I feel like this should be like the first step, trying to make Ethereum simpler for developers or better, and then once they're building something, promote the apps. Because I feel like many people are building stuff, but everyone is just like promoting their own stuff. I don't know exactly how to explain this, but I feel like there is like things are not like correlated between the Ethereum Foundation, how apps or dApps are promoted, things like that. So I feel like there is no marketing from like a user point of view. Like we're not like trying to attract new users. It's not easy, I don't have solutions, but I guess this is something we could be working on and taking like lessons from other chains that are more hyped at the moment.
I partially join everything what you have said, guys. I'll try to be short, just be mindful of time. So there are a few things I think are important, and I would like to see them in the future and pass them. So first, I would like to see the layer 1 as a stronger piece. Again, for the composability reason, for the security reason, and for a few others. The second one, for the layer 2, what I want to see is that protocols take more seriously what and how they build to avoid not only to ensure that it can be used. The third one, I want to come closer in the cooperation with the traditional finance, because for some protocols, for some products, it would be impossible just to do, read the DeFi. So they need to come closer and to cooperate with the DeFi to ensure that actually DeFi is going forward, that there are more users coming on the market, and it's more well-known and trusted by also users who are coming from the traditional finance. So I see it more globally. I don't want to focus only on what we have right now, but I'm thinking how can we scale, what can we improve, and how can we become better. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, it's a lovely panel. I really enjoyed it, and I think we're out of time. So if anybody has questions, you can find them, and you can ask them personally. So yeah, thanks for doing this, guys. It was really, really fun. Thank you.